Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and once again it is time for the Q&A, so let's go ahead and knock this out. Alright, first question. Can you maintain at least a decent amount of muscle once you catch the flu? Assuming you are a young man in your early 20s. And I had that poster go and edit his comment and take out the C word and replace it with the flu, because the answer is actually the same. The answer is the same. It doesn't matter whether we're talking about this current virus, talking about the flu, a really severe cold, anything else. If you're a young man in your early 20s, you should not lose a single drop of muscle if you catch any of these. These are not horrific diseases for healthy, young, fit men. Okay, these are diseases that are very, very dangerous for the elderly. Right? They're very dangerous for the elderly. They're dangerous for immune compromised people. But a healthy man in their 20s, your odds of being severely hurt by any of these is actually about on par with you winning the lottery. Right? It's just pretty low. It's not even like 1 in 1,000. So if you catch any sort of virus, such as these, you're not going to lose any muscle. Do you need to take a few days off from the gym? You bet. Right? You need to take some time off from the gym. And this is what we need to be realistic about. Let's just lump all viruses together. If you have a virus like that is somewhat harmful to people, particularly to certain demographics. Now, people will say, well, people at the gym probably are not in those demographics. You know what? You're right. They probably aren't. But if you're symptomatic, you probably don't need to be going to the gym. Right? That's just basic common courtesy towards your fellow human beings. Okay? You don't need to be spreading your germs all over the gym if you're symptomatic for any sort of respiratory infection. And that's just fair. It doesn't matter what you believe about any of these viruses. That's just common sense and basic decency. Number 2, your training is going to be off. You're not going to be able to stimulate much growth. And I want people to come back over to this point. I don't care about how you feel. I don't care how hard a set felt. What matters is how many reps you did with what percentage of your 1 rep max. And I do mean that. If we're talking about actually stimulating an adaptation, that's what we're talking about. Because you're tired or you're fatigued or you don't feel well, and let's say you know your 5 rep sets, you have to put 30 less pounds on the bar. Well, you just wasted your time. Same thing on the recovery side. If you're dealing with any sort of virus and you're symptomatic enough that you're running a fever, right? Something like that. Your recovery is probably a bit compromised. Do you really need to be training? Probably not. So what did we say in the other Q&As, the ones the last couple of weeks? This topic came up of losing muscle. It takes at least 2 weeks to lose any muscle tissue. Now, do you need to be worried about hydration? And some people say, well, I lose a bunch of weight. Yeah, you lost water because you did not get salts and fluids in. You lost water weight. Right? Keep yourself fully hydrated. Hydration doesn't mean just water. Hydration means salts, electrolytes. What do we mean by that? Sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, all those things. You need those high. Keep those high, keep your fluid intake up. In fact, let's be realistic. What's one of the biggest problems people have with any of these viruses? Dehydration. Dehydration is harmful. Keep yourself hydrated. Keep yourself hydrated. Rest, recover, and once you're through with whatever of these viruses that you happen to have, go back and train. You might feel weaker for 1 or 2 workouts, and within 1 to 2 weeks you will be right back to making gains again. All right, next question. Is sleeping early more beneficial than sleeping late even if you sleep the same hours? Okay. I don't want this to be taken as far as if it fits your sleep Like people try to fit macros. I am not saying that all sleep hours are equal, because they are not, right? People who sleep during the day instead of at night, for example, do not get the same full total benefits. It's not me that says this. We have decades and decades of research on this. You will get lower quality sleep. But if we're talking about the difference between going to bed at 6 p.m. and waking up at 2 a.m. versus going to bed at 11 a.m. and waking up at 7 a.m., right, where basically the majority of your sleeping hours are during dark. You're asleep at midnight. When midnight gets there, you're at some point in your sleep pattern still. Okay, something like that. Right? Just a general guideline. That's two of the most extreme examples I could have given you. By the way, I do follow one of those. I tend to go to bed very, very, very early, and I wake up very early. And I take naps. I sometimes get up and start work and then go back to bed for another hour or two. But that's usually when I'm exceeding 8 hours. I might have slept 7 or 8 hours in the first batch, and then I go back for another couple hours later, sometimes after I train. So that's how I schedule things, because I run my own businesses, make my own hours around what my clients need. But outside of as long as you follow those general guidelines I gave you, there's probably no difference. There's going to be no practical difference. But if you take it to the extreme of saying, oh, it doesn't matter at all, then you get into some silly nonsense like, well, I could just go to bed at 4 a.m. and sleep till noon and get all the benefits of 8 hours of sleep. No, you actually won't. You actually won't. We know for a fact that people who do shift work like that, they tend to have a lot of health problems in the long term as a result of it. They do not get the same quality of sleep. So no, that's not ideal. But all things else equal, whatever fits your lifestyle and your needs, you're fine anywhere in between. Right? All right, next question. Are heavy, strict bicep curls dangerous in the 1 to 4 rep range? If not, would you say it's a good exercise, or just stick to weighted chin-ups? Interesting question. You know what? A lot of guys who do the strict curl competition do tear biceps. And am I saying it's purely because they're doing a strict heavy curl for a max? Maybe. Is it overuse combined probably with the wrong drugs? Probably the latter. But let's be realistic about it. Do you really need to be doing reps that low on a curl? And I'm all for maxing out. Let's keep in perspective that I am someone who maxes out and hits singles a lot. And I think that's an understatement. I'm not someone who only maxes on one lift a week. Let's put it that way. I max on up to 7 or 8 different lifts throughout the week. Okay? I am as pro 1 rep set as you could possibly be. But I also do high rep work. You guys still see me do 20s on some stuff. So let's talk about a curl. A strict curl is not really multi-joint enough to where you're going to really develop real intramuscular coordination from doing this. Realistically, could you program heavy triples and probably not deal with the risk? I'd say you're probably safe. When I was messing with the strict curl for a while back, and I might mess with it again, what did you see me do? I did 5s. Even now, I do heavy cheek curls. Where do you see me? About 5 to 7, 8 reps. Heavy cheek curls. Okay, realistically, these are movements that we're trying to accrue some fatigue. We're not trying to necessarily do a 1 rep max. Okay, if you want to go really, really heavy and start dropping down to 1 to 2 reps, you're probably better off with a chin-up. You're probably better off with a movement that works a couple of other muscles seriously besides just the bicep. Right? I mean, you have to be reasonable about this from a programming perspective. This is the type of exercise, again, a strict curl. This is a sort of exercise where you really actually do potentially have some risk of tearing something by doing a run rep max, particularly if you're running into any amount of overuse beforehand. Probably not worth it if you're not going to compete in the strict curl. Just my opinion on it. Not saying you can't occasionally max on it. If you really want to know where your max is on the lift, all right. I wouldn't make a regular thing of it. Realistically, you probably are not going to get real training benefits by going under about 5 reps on a lift like that. And that's on the lower end of the spectrum. You very well might see benefits going as high as 15 or 20. In fact, I would say that's generally going to be more useful on a strict curl. You're probably going to get better use out of 15s than you are out of 1s. And again, I'm saying that as someone who loves and promotes maxing out. So there's your context for that. Even I'm saying, yeah, probably not very often. All right, guys, well, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time in part 2.